$78 billion not enough? That is how much taxpayers are already shelling out for the food stamp program. Now a report suggesting that we may have to spend even more, saying that Uncle Sam isn't keeping up with rising food costs or promoting healthy choices, but instead of panels finding ways to hike spending on food stamps. Malkin has a crazy thought. Maybe commission a report to help them get off of food stamps. Michelle, that makes too much sense, so I don't know what you're doing here. Explain this. Isn't this out of control now? This is now out of control.
It really has gotten out of control. So we have the National Academy of Sciences that has come out with this report commissioned by the USDA, the Agriculture Department that runs the food stamp program. And their bottom line conclusion is that somehow we should be increasing spending because food stamp recipients aren't able to buy enough healthy food. The explanation here is that in urban centers, it's much harder to get fresh food, organic food, and so if we simply increase the stipend, that somehow these recipients will make better choices. Unfortunately, and again, it's too much common sense for these federal bureaucrats who run these programs. The problem is that if you give these food stamp benefits out, the EBT cards, remove the stigma, and then remove any strings attached to them, guess what? They're going to buy crappy food, and that's what they've been doing all across the country. And there's an unwillingness to say, look, part of this contract between a welfare recipient and the taxpayers who have to subsidize it is you've got to accept some limits. Apparently, these social welfare people think that this is too much of a stigma, it's too much nanny state governmentism. You got to let them buy their soda and crappy food and then give them more money.
Well, we put a sheen or a gloss to it now where we actually make it like a Norman Rockwell type of a benefit where we glorify food stamps, we glorify some of the things. And I'm not saying we shouldn't help out those who need the help and everything else. I am saying, though, that we've made it almost a standard to the point that well, we've gotten various programs that are now so ingrained in society that once you get them, it's almost impossible to get off them.
Yeah, that's right. These temporary entitlements, of course, get renewed and increased and expanded, and then it becomes so much harder to rein them in when the excesses are obvious. Now, we have had successes. For example, in the federal school lunch program and with WIC, Women, Infant, and Children program, there are limits. They try to put the nutrition back in nutritional assistance. You can't use it on soda. You can't use it on potato chips and all of these fatty foods. But for some reason, the social welfare advocates have made SNAP and the EBT program untouchable. And there are states now that have tried to rein it in. New York and Maine, for example, have applied for waivers from the USDA, and the federal government refuses to rein it in at all.
But that's what makes it so hypocritical. These are the same,
yes.
A lot of liberals who are saying, you know, the food police, watch what we eat, watch what we do, but don't tread on the poorest among us, or allegedly the poorest among us. Let them have what they want. That's literally a case of you can't have your cake, but they can eat it.
It certainly is. And, you know, there is, unfortunately, one of these strange bedfellow alliances. In economics, they call it the Baptist and bootlegger syndrome, where you've got these disparate interests that have united to keep the status quo. And in this case, it's the anti-poverty people and, of course, the sugar and soda interests that are making $80 billion, upwards of that amount, on the expenditures from the food stamp program.
Now, the bottom line is encouraging anything by government edict just reinforces more dependency on the government, no matter what the edict. But Michelle, thank you. Good seeing you again.
You bet. Take care.
All right, Michelle Malkin.